Today on the review bench, we have the Zotac Gaming RTX 2070 AMP Edition. Smaller design, but better performance. Before jumping into a couple game tests, you may be wondering to yourself, what makes the Zotac AMP RTX 2070 any different than the Nvidia Founders Edition RTX 2070? They both contain the same base clock of 1410. But where the Zotac AMP RTX 2070 really takes the cake is it bumps up the boost clock by 120 megahertz, as the reference is 1620, and the Zotac AMP RTX 2070 is 1740, which is quite impressive for a card with such minimalistic cooling, but some really cool designs on the inside, which I'll show you now. So with the AMP 2070, a big change you see is this front armor. Zotac has included a front armor that not only cools the VRM as well as the RAM itself, but also helps manage the waste airflow within the card itself, and also provides an extra layer of stability, so you see a lot less card flex than you would with some of the other larger cards. A big shift up from the stock RTX 2070 is Zotac has dropped the DVI port and put in another display port. So now you get 3 display ports, an HDMI port, a USB-C port for virtual link devices, which is really cool to see. This is quite new on cards. Mostly only the RTX cards have this now. And if you still have an older monitor with a VGA port or a DVI port, you can use a DisplayPort to DVR VGA adapter at your will. With that, we're about to jump into some game testing. For today's game testing, we're going to use 4K, 1440p, and 1080p, as well as an assortment of cards and games. If you want to see more cards and more games compared, make sure to click on the link below to see the full review. The first game on our testing list is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Ultra settings, 1080p, we're seeing an average of 63.1 frames per second and 44.9, which is rather impressive as this is slightly beating out the stock GTX 1080. Now as we jump up to 1440p, the Zotac AMP RTX 2070 really starts to shine with a 49.8 as an average and a minimum of 40.8. It is now beating out custom GTX 1080s with ease. When jumping up to 4K, we are now seeing an average of 29.8, just shy of that 30 frames per second, and a minimum of 24.8. Still beating out the custom 1080, but still not quite up to 1080 Ti standards. Up next, we have Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Highest preset, DX12, and at 1080p, we are getting an average frames per second of 94 and a minimum of 80. This is rather impressive, so let's jump up to the 1440p. When bumping up to 1440p, we again beat the GTX 1080, but with this time beating the MSI Gaming X again. 70 frames per second is the average, and 55 is the minimum. Bumping it up to 4K, we now see an average frames per second of 38 and a minimum of 32. Now we jump into The Witcher 3. Ultra settings, hair works off, 1080p, we're seeing an average frames per second of 108.2 and a minimum of 86.9, well above the 60 FPS buttery smooth PC Master Race. Bumping it up to 1440p, we are now looking at 88.2 as the average and 75.6 as the minimum. Again beating the MSI Gaming X GTX 1080, but still slightly below the 1080 Ti. Bumping things up to 4K, we see a 56.7 as the average and a 41.5 as the minimum. This is going to give you a buttery smooth 4K playstyle for Witcher 3, which normally is only seen at the 1080 Ti or better range. Now we jump into our fourth and final game. Battlefield 5, Ultra preset, DX12, 1080p. We're getting frames per second of 101.1 and a minimum of 87.9. This is really impressive until the moment you turn on ray tracing. The moment DXR is switched on, you're now experiencing 43.3 and 31.1. Updates may patch this and correct this, but right at this time, you're definitely going to hit an FPS complete drop the moment that wonderful ray tracing is turned on. Switching up to 1440p, we see an average frames per second of 83.8 and a minimum of 68.6. Very impressive, still staying well above that point you need to be at. But turn on DXR, aka ray tracing again, and 30.4 is your average and 19.8, giving you a lot of stutter and not quite everything you want from those added reflections. Now, finishing things off, we got the 4K test of Battlefield 5. Average frames per second of 66.3 and a minimum of 54.9. Again, giving you a buttery smooth playstyle. But turn on that ray tracing DXR and you become nearly unplayable. 19.3 is the average and 10.4 is the minimum. Those reflections really aren't worth it, Nvidia. So ending things off, let's take a quick look at our breakdown. Packaging accessories, 80% overall. Functionality and aesthetics, 80% overall. Build quality and warranty, 85% overall. Performance, 90% overall. And a total value of 90% overall. This is giving us an entire total score of 85%. This is really impressive for the RTX lineup. Considering that many of the RTXs are plagued with faults and issues, Zotac has a winner here, and it is best summed up by a reviewer GAC45 as the AMP strikes back. Zotac has really done a great job with this card. It has earned our Real Deal Award for a great value, if you can call great values within the RTX line, but it is probably one of the best values coming in there at the exact same price as a Founders Edition with an added performance bump. This is Souls121 with Real Hard Reviews. Make sure to like, subscribe, click the little bell for notifications, and have a wonderful day.